Despite being bigger than both Europe and Australia, Antarctica is still largely completely deserted, this enigmatic habitat for hardy fauna and the sporadic scientists, but the most of the area is yet fully mysterious, although as science progresses, we are learning a little more about this frozen. Hello and welcome to Z. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. We are investigating 10 continents today. Facts about Antarctica that are fascinating don't typically connect ice and volcanoes, but also both of these occur in great numbers on Antarctica. The greatest penguin population is found in Antarctica. It is a volcanic area on Earth. 91 distinct volcanoes, the majority of which, despite the enormous ice, are deep. Highest sheet that is as tall as the Eiger, which is about 4,000 meters high. Switzerland has not experienced any longer than a decade eruptions in Antarctica 2,000 years. However, according to other estimates, the time has come to measure the volcanism and problematic is Antarctica because the conventional techniques for evaluating volcanoes' heat and smoke are challenging to gauge sources buried far beneath the ice. This range's activities might have negative effects if if volcanoes erupted, it may worsen. Destroy the ice sheets in West Antarctica, said Robert Bingham, a glacier specialist. From the several volcanoes that are visible above the Mount Erebus is the most active surface. This is equivalent to roughly 12,000. It is at a height of 400 feet above sea level. Dependent on Ross and the Ross Island, where 3 other species live, volcanoes that are dormant. Mount Terror Bird and the volcano Mount Terra Nova has existed for around 1.3 million years. Albeit it looks to be a few years ago, Antarctica is truly a barren, icy environment. Abundant natural resources and much of the land is covered with ice. And the investigation of thick ice challenging, but there are resources available. In any case, 90% of the world's 70% of the entire ice is made of freshwater on Antarctica. Freshwater is kept in storage. Putting that into perspective, even if the Earth's ice sheet were to melt, the oceans would swell by a staggering 16 feet. Currently, Antarctica mostly serves as a hub rather than for scientific research business endeavors. However, thanks to recent, it is expected to contain exploration huge concentrations of minerals, notably copper. Others think that Antarctica is a region with significant petroleum resources, but one has verified this fact as a result of the Antarctic No Commercial Mining Act of 1959 acceptable in Antarctica. This was an excellent decision because the continent is home to a variety of unusual species that might be harmed by large-scale industries would be even more prevalent. Made more difficult by the fact that nobody owns Antarctica now is opening the location where business endeavors would take a land grab and maybe a proxy battle between the numerous countries of the world. In the lengthy history of the planet's numerous regions, ocean has endured catastrophic alterations, often turn into wasteland and vice versa. But do you really think that Antarctica once had a tropical climate? For the majority of the last 100 million years, with a tropical South Pole, paradise was a lush, lovely location, remarked Leeds professor Jane Francis College of Earth and Space Sciences, a setting with many hairy creatures, live possums, beavers, and other. There, the climate is tropical. Relatively recently in geological time that it became really chilly. The research also highlighted the extreme comparison between the current and historical climates, the state of Antarctica, and the magnitude whenever there are times of increased quantities of carbon dioxide into the climate. During the unusually warm era between 55 and 48 million years ago, they're the hottest time in Earth's history for the past 70 million years. This has been especially significant since it implies the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is the ice from this time period, as when the ice melts, the carbon will be released dioxide and, if it does, set off a feedback cycle. Remains unabated, the outcome will be significant climate change and catastrophic outcomes. An Arctic axe could be used. Returning to a tropical region in the foreseeable future, a total of 11 infants born in incredibly cold Antarctica. They all survived childhood, Antarctica consequently. It has the lowest infant 0% mortality on all continents. First person to be born in a continent. Emilio Marcos Palma was a person born in Esperanza Base of the Argentine Army next to the point of the peninsula of Antarctica. His birth on January 7, 1978, was not coincidence, although at the moment Argentina, Chile, and Britain were battling to assert the authority of the government's one route to the frozen island to express its dedication, and several levels of authority were to put the natives there to occupy the land so that Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet, a pregnant Chilean, was evaluated by Pinochet. Female on the desolate environment so she could provide a Chilean infant is born on an Arctic. Evidently the joke that followed was that Chileans have recently been mailing couples traveling together to the Antarctic in order to stake a claim to the first child. Born and conceived in the territory, Chile is the only country left as of now. Based on non-scientific determinations, South Pole is a nation in Latin America. Possesses 2 permanent military installations with but only in the low hundreds. Snow covers the majority of the continent. Antarctica has certain areas that have recognized as the planet's driest spot, and region known as the Dry Valleys has in over 2 million years of rain there isn't even a drop of precipitation here. Area, which covers 4,800 square kilometer long area with little or no water ice. Even if theoretically there is snow, they lack a few modest water features. Any net changes in the amount of water in the resemblance spans over 2 million years. Mars' landscape and natural surrounding surface has led NASA to carry out many tests. It was the ideal setting to evaluate Vikings' proficiency on steep slopes, but that is little in contrast to Freeze Hills, which have not been observed. Next, water in 14 million years. The Atacama Desert is the driest region on Earth. Deserts don't exist in Chile or Peru. Blazers that supply this region with water, and consequently, very little life can endure. Some regional weather stations have not years without rain, while another average of 1 is reported by the station millimeter year. Researchers from a preserved cocoon was discovered in Sweden. Antarctica is home to ancient species. The finding of the sperm fossils discovered inside the walls of a warm 50-million-year-old cocoon been deemed exceptional by scientists. The Royals published findings. 2015 Society claims that the specimen is earliest animal sperm ever discovered. A class of ancient sex cells of leeches and earthworms is a lot of fossils dating back 50 million years. When the Eocene era began, when horses, rhinoceros, and sheep first appeared, the fossil managed to develop and endure so long that the sperm became stuck in the lox jelly-like wall of the cocoon before it became rigid in that way, comparable to how bugs are sucked inside the organism, was then preserved as a fossil and kept intact for millions of years. Considering how fleeting spermatozoa are rarely are fragile objects kept in the skeleton, the study's primary author, it is believed that an ancient worm secreted the cocoon while the egg and sperm are mated, was then allowed to enter the cocoon and shielded by the surrounding substance. When the cocoon was entirely shut, it would take the surrounding several hours. Hardening agent for biological materials get imprisoned in this wall. According to academics, this is how the sperm fossil developed and was preserved. Kept for a very long time. And there is a salty pond in Antarctica. It is resistant to freezing and endures across the frigid Arctic. Liquid winters only serve to make things weirder. Scientists don't understand how the lake arrived there. Nevertheless, considering as near as we can get to it is Antarctica. Examining Mars without traveling there, scientists are eager to explore the red planet, comprehend the roots of the water's enigma. The body of water is called Don Juan Pond because to its nearly never freezing extremely high salinity that is dangerous, as the area frequently exceeds 100 degrees below zero. In a Don Juan Pond's 33.8% salinity level is saltiest lakes in Antarctica, and second most salty body of water on soil behind the pond in the Guitar. Comprehending the Ethiopian desert's pond origins are significant not just because Earth science, but also potentially broaden our understanding of alien vistas. Besides the pond, the area also contains dark surface striations that show these stripes are seen in the waterways. Like those discovered on Mars, that there could be water on the red planet, as well as any science fiction movie taught us that water is present where there is, even at the South Pole, there is known for being hostile. The location back at least one budding romance. A scientist from the United States was employed at McMurdo Station and envisioned using Tinder to pass the time when he had previously utilized the software. Only little success in the States, and believed it would be interesting to locate a date in the chilly southern tundra. First, there were no profiles for Pole, but after expanding the application's location, he discovered someone else in Radius working as a researcher in a deep field camp. After a 45-minute helicopter journey, he swiped directly to the base station. Expressing his enthusiasm and a couple, they matched minutes later, and she was in fact in the dry valleys in her tent. During our match, the scientist, who requested anonymity out of concern the authorities would take away his internet privileges if they were discovered he was making use of Brown. She was pretty eager to hunt for connections. Camping in Antarctica literally went on. It's amazing that someone discovered me on Tinder. A news agency then came 3 years later. He said he had met up with the researcher and not established the benchmark for the initial connection in Antarctica, but he was hopeful that he would. There is a female researcher there once again. In close proximity to McMurdo Station, it has a really unique and menacing this look known as blood. The Erie waterfall looks to be made of due to the brilliant crimson hue of human blood. Years ago, researchers immediately from these falls considering them to be negative luck, but recently they were successful. To explain this peculiar occurrence, images from below the glacier is helpful. Solving the puzzle will disclose a complicated network of rivers and sublations. Brine-filled subglacial lake at its fullest iron, giving the falls its height. Study team's crimson tint determines how much salt the water takes around 1.5 million years ago. As you eventually arrive to Blood Falls, is able to pass through cracks and probably most of the glacier's channels. Amazingly, this distinct ecology supports life to a group of microorganisms that possesses for more than 2 million years, demonstrating the possibility of life. Ross Ice's most extreme places. The largest ice shelf is called Shelf. It is several hundred meters in Antarctica. Its area is now estimated to be thick 182,000 square miles approximately. Approximately the size of France, it is now. Shelf has acted as a crucial entryway for the purpose of Antarctic exploration. Internal tasks, such as those performed by several of the most well-known trips, as the visible portion of the phrase Ghost Ross Ice Shelf is only the very beginning of, even if it is an iceberg and rises 50 meters, the water's topography. Much of it is underwater in the seas. Exactly like the rest of Antarctica, waves. The Ross Ice Shelf is gradually disappearing, yet it is a dissolve into the water. Misunderstanding that the ice shelf increasing waves, which causes the melting of. There is no direct impact of these ice shelves. As the ice is melting, the impact already in balance with not the ice shelf, but the surrounding water. The glacier's rate of movement on the continental sliding that might otherwise quicker, causing water to enter the ocean. Levels to increase if it maintains its. The Ross Ice Shelf might at present increase water levels by up to 38 feet.